Hello. In this video, we're going to go through 6.3.3, which is the Law of Cosines. And this is part 2. So if you did not watch part 1, make sure you go back and do that first. Part 1 we did on Friday, March 19th. So if you did not watch part 1, go do that first. Part 2, we are going to use the law of cosines to find missing angles instead of missing sides. So the first thing I'm going to write down is just a couple important things we need to remember. So first, we can only use with side, 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 and side angle side. So we got to make sure that's like our first step every time. Make sure we can actually use this law. And then here's our formula. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. And so this is why, if you did not watch part 1, it's helpful to go back and watch it because it breaks down each of these pieces. But today we're just going to jump right in. So let's do an example where we're looking for a missing angle instead of a missing side. So this example says, find the measure of angle Q. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I can use the law of cosines. So I need to see if I have SSS or SAS. And we can see we have side, 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 so we're good to use the formula. So now I want to circle the thing that I am looking for. Circle the thing that I'm looking for. So I'm trying to find the measure of angle Q. So I'm going to circle angle Q. That's what I'm looking for. You can put an X in there if you'd like, but since angles are always named, you don't have to. And then you also want to circle its corresponding side, so its matching side. So I just draw an arrow right across, and this is the side we care about. And so in the formula, we always start with the side that we care about. So we have 10 squared. And then we have the other two sides, and it doesn't matter what order you choose. Like I said in the last video, I just start with the smallest one. So I'm going to do 6 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 6 times 12. And then I have the cosine of the angle that we care about. So the angle that's circled is Q, which I don't know, so I'm just going to put Q. Or if you wrote an X there, you can put X there as well. So now the problem with angles is that we can't type this entire thing into the calculator because of this last part. We don't know this last part, so I can't just use my calculator and type this in. So that means I'm going to have to use my PEMDAS steps and simplify this to be able to get my answer of what the angle Q is. So it's important to simplify following PEMDAS and making sure we understand that like this end piece is an entire thing. It is, you can't break all this up. So I can't type like all of this in the calculator and see what I get because these parts are connected. So I'm going to simplify each part and then I'll show you what it looks like. So we're going to start with 10 squared. 10 squared is 100. And then 6 squared plus 12 squared. You can do those separate or you can do those together. It's up to you. So I'm going to do them separate for now. So you have 36 plus 144. And then this part we can simplify together. So we have negative 2 times 6 times 12. So we have negative 2 times 6 times 12. To get minus 144 cosine of Q. So you can see it's kind of like one thing plus another thing minus another thing. And so when we're just adding or subtracting, we can combine as much as possible, but this is its own person, this is its own person, and this is its own person. And since there's still something missing over here, I can't combine that together with it. So I'm going to do 36 plus 144 to get 180. And then we still have this minus 144 cosine of q. So now this looks a little bit crazy, but you can kind of imagine that it's just like if we had the problem 100 equals 180 minus 144x. And if I asked you to find what x is, you can follow your solving steps by getting rid of 180 first and then dividing. What you cannot do is you cannot do 180 minus 144. You cannot combine these two things yet. So we're going to follow those same steps here. Subtract 180 on both sides. 100 minus 180 is minus 80. And then, just like if this was a variable, we can just divide by 144 on both sides. What's very helpful is to leave this as a fraction. It makes less work for you, and it makes our angle more accurate. If you figure out what this is as a decimal, and then you round it and continue solving, just like on Friday's lesson, you're going to end up with a 2 rounded answer. And we don't want our answer to be rounded, we want it to be very specific. So I'm going to leave this as negative 80 over negative 144. And then to get q by itself, we need to do the inverse cosine on both sides. So remember when we did inverse cosine? On the Google calculator, it just has like the INV button. And we're just going to type the cosine inverse of this fraction we have here. So we're going to do cosine inverse of negative 80 over negative 144. And we get 56.3. 56.3. And again, I would just double check to see like if that looks like a reasonable angle. Angles are going to be a little bit harder to tell because, you know, we're sketching these, so it's a little bit crazy. But if I got an answer of like 100 and something, I would know it's not that for sure. So just double check to see if it's a reasonable answer. And there you go. I do want to do one more. If you feel good about this, you don't have to watch the second example, but I think it might be helpful. So in this one, we're going to find the measure of angle M. And so again, we want to start by circling the thing we're trying to find. So I'm trying to find M, and then I go across and I circle that as well. So when we start our formula, we start with the side we care about. So the side we care about is 7, and then the other two sides come after. Again, doesn't matter what order. So 10 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 10 times 15. And then the cosine of the angle, so the cosine of M. So now again, you kind of want to simplify in 3 pieces. And one thing that helps me is I simplify the first piece, which has 1 part, the second piece, which has 2 parts, and the third piece, which has 3 parts. So that's kind of how I remember how to separate it. So 7 squared is 49. And then I can do 10 squared plus 15 squared together to get 325. And then I can type this in, minus 2 times 10 times 15 is minus 300. cosine of m. And then remember, this 300 is connected to this cosine, so you cannot simplify these two pieces together. In order to keep simplifying, we want to move this 325 to the other side. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. And I get minus 276. And then to get m by itself, I want to divide on both sides. And then remember, you do not want to simplify this to a decimal. So if I ended up doing this one's a relatively easy decimal, but imagine it had like 10 decimal places and you rounded it. Your answer might be like 3, 4, even 10 degrees off for the angle measure. So you don't want to do that. So instead, what we're going to do is just do the inverse cosine of this fraction. Don't simplify it or anything. Just type it in. It makes less work for you. Oops. And we get 23.1. 23.1. And if I look at my angle, that does look like a relatively small angle, so 23.1 seems like a very good angle measure for my answer. So as you get more practice, this simplifying will become second nature. You just got to be really careful. Do it in 3 parts, the first part with 1, the second part with 2 pieces, and the third part with 3 pieces.